Organic Climbing is the official sponsor of Sends and Suffers podcast. And if you didn't know, now you know. I have been using this company's products since before my podcast, since I basically started rock climbing. They're cool, they're rad, they're customizable. You can get bouldering pads, chalk buckets, backpacks. They've got shoes. They've got almost anything you can conceive to make you look fly, to make you functional at the crag. Check out Organic Climbing. Put in Sends and Suffers at your purchase. It helps this podcast out and really support someone who has been supporting the conception of climbing communities since the beginning. Josh and everyone at Organic is all about making sure communities grow. And that is a huge thing coming from a small company that moves massive, massive mountains. So check out Organic Climbing. Tell them I sent you. Let's get into this episode.
Hello and welcome to Everybody Climbs. I'm your host, Emily Chen Newton. This is a collaborative podcast presented across Plugtone audio platforms about and from para and adaptive climbers. From community building to competition training, we get into it on this show. This is a collaboration with Sends and Suffers podcast and Mario Stanley. So if this is the first time that you're hearing my voice on this platform and you're like, what? Who is this lady? Fear not, this is still Sends and Suffers. Mario is still your regular host. I'm just going to be popping in for an episode about once a month to bring you more adaptive content. For today's episode, we've got an excerpt from my conversation with Amruta Wyssman, who goes by Amy. She started bouldering in 2018, and by 2021, she was helping to start the Swiss paraclimbing team. Before climbing, Amy was into all kinds of snow sports. So today we talk about the similarities between different outdoor sports like climbing, snowboarding, and how they are slowly making their way into the Olympics and Paralympics. And we also get into how paraclimbing is being presented on the world stage these days. Amy competes in the AU2 category, one of the categories for climbers with upper limb differences. You'll hear Amy refer to her left arm as her stump when she describes her sport classification. And you'll also hear her mention Mo. That's Maureen Beck, another well-known climber who competes in the AU2 category. We recorded this episode shortly after she competed in her hometown of Bern, Switzerland at the 2023 Paraclimbing World Championships. And that's where we'll jump into the conversation.
Yeah, it was so cool to perform in front of the home crowd. And I mean, really the home crowd, because I live very close. I mean, it took place in Bern. I live and work there, and most of my friends are from here.
That's so cool. So can you talk a little bit about the formation of the Swiss paraclimbing team? Because I know it's not brand new at this point, but it's still relatively new. Can you talk about the formation of the team and your role in it?
Yeah, the team started in 2021 with me as the first and only athlete for a few months. And they wanted to do an inclusive world championship, which means paraclimbing is fully included and not after the able-bodied world champs. So Switzerland didn't have a team before, and they, as host, needed to build a team. So they asked me because I was in the one climbing gym in Bern pretty often. And so I got asked from the Flugsport, that's the Association for Disabled Sports here in Switzerland. They asked me if I would be willing to try it out. And I said yes. Then I started training pretty quickly after that, alone with the coach. He was an able-bodied juniors coach before, and for him it was also very new. And so we started training together and found a pretty new side of this very nice sport.
And that was that 2021?
2021, yes. Yeah, I started climbing in 2018.
Okay.
Only bouldering most of the time then. And I started rope climbing actually really intensive when I started training. So it's my second season this year.
Yeah. You must have had like some natural skill though that people saw. So they basically saw you bouldering and then asked you if you would be the first member of the paraclimbing team, but that meant that you had to learn rope climbing.
Yes, I always was pretty sporty, and so climbing felt pretty natural for me from the beginning on.
Mhm.
And I did a lot of winter sports. I do skiing and snowboarding, and I'm a rider. I grew up with horses, so I ride.
Oh, cool.
And then I tried everything the boys did, from basketball to field hockey. I did nearly everything. And then I stopped doing sports because I injured my knee. And for 10 years, I didn't do anything. And my best friend took me climbing because I was always talking about, oh, it looks always so cool. And she does it since she's a child. So she was like, oh, yeah, just try it. Come with me.
And did you have any thought as being a person born without your left forearm that climbing like may not be something that would be great for you? Or were you like, hell yeah, let's do it?
It wasn't the first sport I thought I would do, but I'm a person that always tries stuff. And when I fall or if it doesn't work, then it's, oh, shit happens. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't say that.
It's a podcast. It's okay. We're not on the radio.
Then I try it again or I let it be. But most of the time it works somehow. And that's the same thing with climbing.
Yeah, it is. That's like at the heart of climbing, no matter what you're working through, if you have a physical thing, if you have a mental block of some kind, like that's just kind of at the core of what all climbers deal with, I think, like every climb.
Yes, that's absolutely true. I mean, I see the juniors, I see the adult able-bodied climber going through the same mental stuff as we do. Like, oh my God, I feel weak, or that hold is way too far away for me, or something like that. You hear that from everyone, so it doesn't matter if you're able-bodied or disabled.
Mm-hmm. And how have you found competing in your particular category or having your limb difference? How has that changed things for you or affected things for you for other sports, rock climbing included?
My category is pretty strong, and so it's cool. I have a lot of role models where I can learn new techniques and stuff. But as someone with a very short thumb, I mean, AU2 is elbow but no wrist, and I have just the elbow. So I have one of the shortest stumps in our category, and root setting makes it harder for me because they have to make it difficult also for the competitors with the longer stumps. I mean, Mo has like this much more than me.
So some other women in your category will have a little bit past their elbow, but you don't have it. Yeah.
Much more. They can have it until the wrist. So it's a lot of difference in between the categories, but they cannot make it any more fair for the athletes at the moment because we are not enough to do like bigger or more categories.
Right. How do you work through that? Looking at something and not going straight to like, it's just too far. I just can't do it. Do you have a process that you go to try to keep your head from going to that space?
I had a pretty difficult season mentally this year until the World Champs. So I had a lot of these thoughts, but in the end, I mean, I only can train and get stronger and be the best I can be, and then the success will follow. I mean, you see the girls or the women with all the different stumps and body types, and everyone is so strong and everyone gets stronger with training. So we just have to do that as everyone else.
Yeah, as somebody, since I've been reporting on all of the international and national competitions starting in the U.S., I've followed some of the climbers throughout the season, starting basically in March. And it visibly, people were stronger. By the time I went to the first nationals in Austin, Texas, and then I was watching the World Championship from my couch, I was like, people are visibly stronger over the course of those several months.
Yeah, you saw that. You really saw that. I mean, we know each other, the athletes. I mean,
Hmm.
we know each other. Most of them, for me, it's the second season. I started to getting to know them last year in Salt Lake City, and you text and you phone and you talk about your progress or not, and that's very helpful. So we see each other on Instagram training or climbing or just having fun, and that gives you a push to work a bit harder sometimes.
Yes, and that's so cool that we have this, like, global virtual community now that you can do that. You can be encouraging each other from thousands of miles apart.
Yeah, that's what I did when I started with the park climbing journey. I reached out to Mo.
Mm.
I slid in her DMs, and she was so she was so helpful, and she gave me so many tips and where to find the rules and stuff. And that's great with, I mean, the social media, as hard it is to maintain it, but it's great. It's so helpful for everyone.
Yeah, I have a physical disability. It's a collagen disorder. So it's basically all of my connective tissue is too loose. And one of the first people that I reached out to who was a climber who has the same condition was also through Instagram. And there's a significant amount of people with the condition that I have who climb. And if I were just trying to find people within the city where I live, I might find one other person maybe. But globally on the internet, I can find hundreds.
Yeah, same for me. I didn't even know that park climbing existed before I got asked to be part of the team, and then I started googling, and I found so many people with the same disability as me, and it helped me very much to stay on it and work for it.
Mm. What has climbing done for you? What do you find that you get from it that you weren't getting from other sports in the past?
My body is healthier. I don't have the disbalance of the muscles in my left side as much as I had before.
Mm.
My back is better now. And I mean, the mental health, climbing gives you so much self confidence. And I mean, job wise, I got a job at the Swiss Alpine Club, and yeah, I met so many great people through climbing, not only park climbing.
Yeah, because climbing, I mean, paraclimbing and climbing, it is all part of the greater climbing community. And especially if you take it out of the competition zone, everybody just climbs together.
That's true. I mean, I know a lot of the able-bodied athletes from Switzerland, and they are always, when they are in the same gym, they are always talking to me and giving me tips.
Yeah, that was something I wanted to ask you about that I've heard you describe yourself as a newbie in interviews. And so I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about what that experience has been like for you coming in as a newbie, but then like you were almost immediately competing at a high level. What has that been like?
Yeah, I mean, first season was awesome. Second season, I was like, I had this, how do you say it? I wanted to be on the same level as the year before, but I couldn't train that much because of some health issues. And then I was
Mm,
disappointed that my season wasn't that good from the beginning on.
mm,
And then the mental struggle came in. And that
mhm.
was pretty hard for me because I never did very competitional sports before, and so it was a new experience for me, and an interesting one, but sometimes also a hard one.
Mhm. That wanting to train and not being able to, mm, I understand that deeply. That's something I deal with a lot. Because the condition I have makes me much more vulnerable to injuries, like dislocations or just tendon injuries and stuff like that. So I have to be really careful to push myself, but to not push myself too much. And of course, I do.
We are climbers, of course we do that.
Yeah, it's so hard. But something that you mentioned earlier, you said it when you started climbing, it actually really helped, like back pain and an imbalance of muscle. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Um, I had close to zero muscles on my left arm. That means also the shoulder, because I use the arm for lifting something or but not really in daily life.
Mm-hmm.
And so it made my whole left side weaker. So I always had to balance it out with my right side, which was stronger. And
Mm.
that started to give me knee aches or knee pain or hip pains. I couldn't sit in a cinema for 2 hours straight.
Mm-hmm.
My friends had to carry me out sometimes. So, and that changed because I built the muscles on the left side because I used my left arm for climbing.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's so cool. Everybody should climb.
Yeah, I tell them all.
Are there any ways that you feel like having a disability has actually made you a better climber?
Yes, it has. I mean, I don't do the mistake only using my arms. I'm really depending on my footwork, and that helps. And I think I read the routes a little bit different than as you would, which also helps to find new ways to do a move or a crux. And my friends, my able-bodied friends, come to me and ask, "What would you do when they are stuck in a crux move?"
That's pretty nice. Are there any projects that you are working on right now to help get other people into climbing? Or maybe it's not something that you're working on personally, but something that you know about, an initiative in Switzerland to get more people climbing?
Um, we have the inclusion initiative at the Swiss Alpine Club at the moment. They start to build programs for outdoor climbing for people with disabilities, but they are starting it. There are a few tours that you can make, but it's also sensibilization of the tour guides
Mm-hmm.
and I'm still pretty active with I I will meet an organization for families with children with only one hand. I go to a brunch next Sunday to meet them, and then we will do a climbing day in autumn. So I hope we are setting a stone for the future.
What's that organization called?
They are called Pinocchio. It's a very small organization. So it's pretty cool. One of the moms texted me on Instagram and asked me if I would be willing to meet them. And I was like, yeah, of course.
We have a group here called Lucky Finn in the US, and it's kind of similar.
Yeah, Finding Nemo.
That's wonderful, though, because it is, giving an example to kids really early on of just seeing other people who look like them doing cool shit.
Yeah, that's so important. I didn't have that. And I hope I can be that role model for future children and parents that they know, hey, it's not so bad if my child is born with a disability. It can do cool shit. I mean, I'm adopted, so my parents chose to adopt a child with a disability. So they did they chose it. But I mean, when I see how I grew up, they never made me feel disabled. So I did everything, and that's what I want to see other parents that may not chose this life. So
Yeah, absolutely. And you being there is so important to help move them in that direction. And what was the new climbing initiative that you were talking about to like get other people with disabilities climbing? Is that through the Alpine Club?
yeah, inclusion on the mountain. So basically, they really try to break the barriers between the able-bodied and the disabled alpinists. So I mean, Switzerland is a bit behind with inclusion.
What do you mean?
We have a lot of stairs. Not every train station is accessible.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, still in the climbing world, there were looks when I started climbing, like, oh no, that's not possible. Or when I started lead climbing myself last winter and lead belaying one handed, and there are still people, oh no, how is this possible? And since paraclimbing started, it took 20 years until Switzerland built a team. You know what I mean? all the para sports have more difficulties to get fundings and sponsorings and money. So it will always be a bit harder.
But I mean, having the World Cup and the World Championship there, like that's massive, I would think. And it was so intertwined. I thought that really meant something this year, instead of having able-bodied and then the next day or next 2 days, then we have paraclimbing. Like it was all interwoven. Even in the same day, they would kind of flip-flop between the two.
Yeah, that's so cool. And they did a really good job with the marketing.
Mhm.
I mean, they had posters of Martin, my team colleague, in the paraclimbing team. He's missing a leg. And they had posters from me everywhere in the city, everywhere on the website. It was very well advertised that paraclimbing is a thing. And yeah, I'm pretty thankful that they did it that way.
Mhm. It means a lot. I mean, it's really important how it's presented to the world.
It is. If it wouldn't have been for the marketing campaign from the World Champs, maybe we wouldn't have this many visitors.
Yeah. I mean, it really makes you think, like, just how these were Olympic qualifiers for speed and bouldering. It's potentially in the years to come, if it does become part of the 2028 Olympics, like we could be seeing Paralympic and Olympic qualifiers all happening at the same time.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Mm-hmm. So the climbers who are there, like in the case of Bern, some of the people were there qualifying for Olympic competition. And to have those same people in the crowd and their friends and families like stick around for the paraclimbing, or not even stick around, but like they're there because the rest of the climbing competition isn't even done yet. So like they have to stay. Because
I mean, Colin Duffy was watching the paraclimbing finals. Sorato Anaraku was watching the paraclimbing finals. I saw a few of the able-bodied athletes being there and also encouraging and cheering on for us. I mean, the whole Swiss team was helping.
Mm-hmm.
They helped in the background, or they were belaying, and that was so cool to see.
Mm-hmm. That's feels like the real spirit of climbing to me.
Yes.
Which is always the difficult thing, I think. And I think it will always be difficult with taking climbing, which is by its nature in some ways a cooperative sport, and putting it into a competitive setting. You're always going to have a little bit of, tension. And I think when we get to see things like that, it really brings it back to the true nature of the sport, where you are competing, but everyone's also helping.
Yeah, that's true. I see that most in the cool outdoor sports. I mean, snowboarding is the same.
Yes.
And I grew up with snowboarding and this scene, and it was always, yeah, of course, they are competing, of course, or we are competing, but you have the competition. And when someone is better than you, you're happy for them, and not like if you do track or something. I did track and field for a few years, and that was horrible because there were so many bitch fights. No one was happy for the others, and the competition in between the teams is so big that you have to fight for your spot on the front. And I mean, climbing is still an outdoor and a sport where you have to trust people, because you have a belayer down there. So you cannot be, oh, it's only me. I have to be on point. You have to trust other people that you are safe. And I think that's some of the things that makes it more relaxed.
That's a really good point. You have to trust your other person. Even if you're bouldering, most times you have a spotter there. You have somebody who's going to move the bouldering pad for you, or you hope they do, or be there to give you a spot. I wonder if it has to do with the other sport I think about is surfing would be kind of like that, where you're competing. There's a long history of surfing competitions, but you're also still rooting, you're rooting for the other person. Nobody ever wants the other person to wipe out. Nobody ever wants the other person to fall. When you're climbing, these are sports that have inherent danger to them. So you're rooting for them because you don't want your competition to get hurt.
Same with snowboarding.
Same with snowboarding.
If you fall on a 24-meter table, it hurts.
Right.
So no one wants other people to get hurt. And everyone knows it's in climbing. For me, it's not me against the other competitors. It's me against myself and the route. I want to top that route. I have to grow over my own insecurities to top that route or get to my personal high point. And that's what climbing is about. It's not you're not climbing next to each other, and it's not like speed climbing. You can see, yeah, this one was faster, this one was slower.
It's very comparable.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I said. That was so I'm so sorry. I didn't speak English for a few months, for a few weeks now.
Your English is great. Your English is great. But yeah, speed climbing has been converted to like a more traditional indoor sport that you can really compare apples to apples, which you just can't do with the other forms of climbing that we have.
Yeah, you were watching Salt Lake City. I mean, one of my routes, we had a crux, and we had 4 athletes doing 4 different betas. And that's the cool thing in climbing.
Yes. And that's like able-bodied or disabled, it doesn't matter. That's just climbing.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to do it. You can do it 10 different ways if you have 10 different climbers.
Yes.
What are your current climbing goals? What are you working on right now?
At the moment, I'm working on getting back to climbing. No, I will start climbing again tomorrow. I took a break after World Champs.
What has it been? 3 weeks now? 2 weeks?
1.5? No, 2 weeks, actually.
2 weeks?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
And I want to start ice climbing in winter or try it out. So that's my next little goal. And then train as hard as possible. Hopefully it gets Paralympic.
You mean climbing, not ice climbing?
Climbing, paraclimbing, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have the World Cup in South Fe every year, the ice climbing World Cup. And it looks like so much fun. And I always loved snow. And I know a lot of people that do ice climbing. And I know people that do it with a missing arm, like Mo. And that's why I thought, oh yeah, why I don't try it?
Do you basically just get an attachment that affixes to your stump? How do you work that out? Like for the ice pick?
That's the point. I'm talking to a few people at the moment to figure out how we will do it. And I'm lucky that I have a cool sponsor that actually does ice
picks.
Ice picks. And so I can try to work something out for me there, because I mean I have 15 snowflakes all over my body tattooed. So
you do. I was going to ask you about your snowflake tattoos. Actually, they're so distinct, I would say.
Every snowflake is different to the other, and every snowflake on my body is different to the other. So I don't have one that is the same. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and on the other side I have the ibex.
Ibex? What do you
Ibex Capricorn.
Oh, yeah. It's like a mountain goat, right?
Yeah, but it's a huge mountain goat. They are very good climbers too.
Did you get that after you started climbing?
No, that's the place where I grew up. It wasn't Bern. I grew up in a region where we have a lot of mountains. It's the local animal there, so
they have the best balance.
Yes.
I have 2 feathers here as on my shoulder, which is for because kind of the problem with my genetic condition is that I'm too flexible. But so feathers are super flexible, but they are also strong because they're so flexible. So that's
cool.
Kind of the meaning behind.
That's a really cool meaning.
Yeah, it's important to have some like a physical reminder, I feel like.
Yeah, that's true. I have a lot of fun tattoos. I have a T-Rex on my leg.
Oh,
like short arms.
Yes, thanks for clarifying.
So sometimes you need to put some things on your body to make yourself feel, to remind yourself that life is not that serious sometimes.
Mm-hmm. I get that. Well, thank you so much, Amy, for sharing your stories and goals and tattoos. It's been a great conversation. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was cool seeing you again, even if it's through the screen.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll see each other soon. Do you have plans for coming to the United States anytime soon?
Hopefully I can come to the next World Cup, but it depends on selection and stuff.
Sure.
Because we are a big team, we have to select now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But that would be the plan.
Okay. Well, cool. Hopefully I'll see you there next year. In this episode, Amy mentioned Mo Maureen Beck, another AU2 climber and a pillar in terms of community building and competition winning. To hear more from Mo, check out the first episode in this series about the Adaptive Climbers Festival. You can find it by scrolling back up through your podcast feed. You've been listening to Everybody Climbs. This episode was produced as a collaboration with Sends and Suffers and Plugtone Audio. Big thanks to Mario for being down to make all of this happen. And thank you all for listening. I'm Emily Chen Newton, an adaptive sports reporter. You can find my other work on NPR, in Climbing Magazine, Gear Junkie, Climbing Business Journal, and others. If you want to reach out about what you heard on today's show or have ideas for future coverage, you can send a message on the contact page of plugtoneaudio.com. That's all for today. Climb on, climb strong, and remember, everybody climbs.